So surgeons were, potential surgeons were being deferred so that they could be fully trained. But those of us in internal medicine or family medicine or pediatrics, not so much. So I requested a 1 year additional training stint, but was not granted it. And I was told that I was drafted into the Navy. So I asked what that meant, and they said, well, call this number and they'll tell you. So I called and told them who I was and what I was interested in, and they said, oh yes. He said, well, what happens during your 2 years of service depends on what ship you're assigned to and where it is in its normal rotation. So I asked what that meant, and they said, well, a Navy ship typically goes through 3 6-month rotations. It goes through 6 months of cruise from the home port, 6 months cruise overseas, and then 6 months in dry dock. So depending on where you catch it, you could spend a year overseas, a year locally, or a year while the ship's in dry dock. And I said, well, what do you do when the ship's in maintenance? They said, then you run a primary care clinic on the base for the ship's crew and families. I said, well, okay, that didn't sound particularly dangerous, but they said, you're assigned to a destroyer out of San Diego. I said, a destroyer? They have physicians on destroyers. And I knew from World War II that they had physicians on aircraft carriers and battleships and cruisers, but not the smaller ships. They said, yes, we have physicians on destroyers now. So I thought, well, I'll probably learn a lot about upper respiratory infections and sexually transmitted diseases, but this is a population chosen for its health. So it's a basically healthy population, maybe with families and kids and stuff. And I said, that doesn't sound dangerous, doesn't sound particularly exciting either. Then a classmate of mine from medical school told a number of us that he learned that when you're drafted, you can request assignment to the Public Health Service, which was a uniformed but unarmed service of the United States, and that it would satisfy your draft obligation. And if you joined the Public Health Service, and if you were chosen to join it, then you could choose the Peace Corps, or you could ask to be assigned to the Peace Corps, because all of the Peace Corps physicians from the U.S. were being drawn from the Public Health Service. Peace Corps was early in the Peace Corps' tenure. This was 5 years after the Peace Corps started. They were very mothering. They wanted U.S. trained physicians in countries where there was concern about the local medical capability. So a bunch of us were assigned. So I said, gee, that's neat. So I went to the physical exam. It's another lesson. When I walked in, I had to get permission to leave the hospital. I was in intern whites, white coat, white pants, all the gear, all the accoutrements. So I go downtown and immediately get all kinds of deference. Oh, here's a doc, right? Until you get to the point where you strip down the skivvies. Then nobody knew who you were. And at that point, it was, get in line with everybody else and sort of bend over and they look up your butt, and if they don't see daylight, and say, you pass. This is sort of the way we described it. This settled for the Peace Corps. So when I requested transfer to the Public Health Service, they said, okay, we can do that. And then I said, and I'd like to be assigned to the Peace Corps. And they said, okay. It was so easy I couldn't believe it. They said, okay, what country do you want to go to? And I said, I don't know. The only language I'd taken in high school and college was German. That didn't fit any Peace Corps country. So I said, I'm going to have to learn a new language anyway, so any Spanish-speaking country would be good. So I have a wife who's a Spanish teacher, see? I didn't tell them that, but I said, okay. And the next thing I knew, we were assigned to Bolivia. So we're assigned to Bolivia, and now the Peace Corps is trying to get me ready. And so they say, you need to learn some Spanish. So we're going to send you to take Spanish lessons. And I said, okay, but remember, I'm 36 hours on, 12 hours off. Most nights when I'm off, I'm pretty tired. Sometimes I get to sleep, but most times only a little or not at all. So there I was, after 36 hours on, coming home, have dinner with Ardith, and then go down to take a Berlitz language lesson, which is the same time Ardith tried to get me to take lessons like bridge. So I learned some basics, but not very much. You know, I could ask for the bathroom, ask for beer, and say hello, say goodbye, and name some objects, but I couldn't do much else. It's just
Now,
really hard to
Ardith,
learn.